secular as well as holy or religious knowledge. The Moors brought with them their skills in metalwork, their skills in medical surgery and pharmacology. The Moors brought with them their skills in horsemanship. All these things which would later become part of Spain. All these things which would prepare Spain for leading the European world, unfortunately, in taking over so much of the world, because they were using the resources that the Moors had given them. But the Moors invade from northwest Africa, and Alfonso X is one of the Catholic monarchs who recognizes that if we as Catholics, I'm talking now as Alfonso X, if we as Catholics are going to be able to deal with this Moorish presence, we have to study their stuff. We got to understand their sciences, because we're losing people. There were people complaining as early as the 10th century about these so-called good Catholics no longer being able to speak Latin or even know anything about, Catholic liturgy. They're all going over to the Moorish camp. And the reason is because the Moors are the ones, as the doctors, who are actually engaging in some knowledgeable techniques in surgery and medicine. So, what's the choice? Somebody tells you, see, I'm sick. One person says, well, let me see, it could be that you have a blockage in an artery or something. Where is it? What you talking about? Blockage in an artery? Somebody told me up there it was because they're evil spirits. I need to go and pray or say 12 Hail Marys. Which, of course, doesn't hurt if you're a Catholic, but it also makes some sense to go and get some real medical knowledge, medical skill, medical help. And this was the problem. So they started losing people. Alfonso X then commissioned the translation of several Moorish texts, medical texts, mathematical texts, philosophical texts, religious texts, had them translated from Arabic into the developing Spanish vernacular, meaning the Spanish language, as well as Latin and French, and had these books then distributed throughout the Catholic world. He was trying to bring the Catholic world, the Christian world of Europe, up to snuff with what the African Muslims had achieved. This is one of the pages from the chess book. Now I note this. People customarily are confused about the Moors in terms of the ethnicity. Many European histories treat the Moors as if they were Arabs who came directly out of the Arabian Peninsula. And we know that that isn't true. While it may be true that there are Arabs who have Moorish ancestry or Moors who have Arab ancestry, an Arab and a Moor are not synonymous. This particular page from El Sabio's chess book shows people sitting playing chess. Those are Moors. There's a turban which appears to look like it should be Arab in origin, doesn't make them an Arab, any more than me wearing a French suit makes me a Frenchman. So we need to understand that when you look at something, you need to look beyond just the physical image and ask yourself, well, what was the history behind that era in order to understand it? This is one of the emperors of Morocco. This is Ismail, 1670. One of the emperors of Morocco who was known to have owned several Europeans as slaves. Now, a lot of people who are part of the African community or the African American community are often made to feel somewhat inferior because people say, well, all you all ever did was descend from some slaves. And of course, you can believe that me being in West Virginia, I've had a lot of students, a lot of European American students who come in the classes, expecting to hear about the history of African American enslavement and the history of European Americans being the masters. And of course, I come from another direction. I begin at the beginning. And I deal with the issue of even where the word slave came from. Then we go back to that Slavic thing again, right? See, remember homeboy earlier talking about, the Slavic peoples being less than Homo sapien. Well, yeah, some of the Germanic peoples thought so. It pressed them into servitude so much that their name became synonymous with servitude, hence slave. So when we look at the situation in its entirety, we recognize that no one has a monopoly on being enslaved. The only thing is, in more recent history, African peoples were the most recently enslaved en masse. But when you have a long memory, you can remember something different and eliminate that notion of never having made any significant contribution to anything, always being a slave. Because when one thinks that they descend from slaves, and that's their focus, they continue to act like slaves. Well, this is backwards, but what that says is more. And it says it's from a collection of the Lehigh County Historical Society. You have Moors in the coats of arms. Okay, I'll just explain where that is from. Moors in the coats of arms of European families. And here's what's significant. When you consider that the European world today tries to hide as much as possible about their African links, their connection to African people, it is nothing short of profound when you go and look at heraldic texts which show the coats of arms, the symbols of European families, and in it you find you. It's obvious that they're saying there was a time when we wanted to show you off as part of the family. We wanted to show you off so much that we put it in books which would be passed down for posterity. We have coats of arms hanging up in our homes showing you, African man and African woman, Asiatic. They're letting you know the way things used to be. They're not afraid to say it. Morrison, son of a Moor, Morris. In fact, I just say a dear friend of mine passed away yesterday morning. His name was Louis John Morris, also known as Skyman. He was given that name essentially because he was building bridges between African Americans and Native Americans, and the Lakota people gave him the name Skyman. He passed away yesterday. So I said that I would dedicate this lecture to him. But to find this legacy within European family coats of arms tells us that they obviously felt differently about us at some point. Otherwise, they wouldn't talk about us in a positive way. They wouldn't have us in the coats of arms. Now, what's intriguing is this. When I first started doing the research on the Moors, and I was looking at the presence of the Moors in European coats of arms, I found that the term Moors was always noted in the description of European books published in Europe. But when the books were reprinted in the United States, they changed the term to Negro. So you would look up, the Morrison coat of arms, and instead of seeing, a Moor's head, wreathed about the temples, you would see a Negro's head wreathed about the temples. Now, that may not seem like a whole lot unless you understand the meaning of the word Negro, and unless you understand why these people were actually doing that. They were trying to disconnect the Moors from European history. But again, the phonetic sound of Moor was still there. It keeps coming up. Morrison, Moreau, Moore, Mordaunt, Morley, Morgan, and then some other names like Stewart and Halliburton and Gleam and Brocas, Zamoras, all these names, even Zangermeister or Singmaster. And I heard someone else say Douglas, which is Celtic for behold the Moor, or behold the black-skinned man. This is more. It's okay, you don't have to turn that around. You know, basically, this is another armorial bearing coming from the